welcome everyone. We are here on the Awful Takes podcast, specifically a review episode today. It's been 2 weeks, probably when this goes up, since Alien Romulus came out. I saw it 2 days after it came out, and I've been just dying to see it again. I gotta get some time to go to the theater and watch it again.
Nice.
I have a lot of thoughts and discussions that I want to get into about this movie. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking Alien Romulus. My name is Nabahi.
Hello, I'm Wallied from Sergator Productions.
And we have both seen Alien Romulus now. And yeah, I guess a little background information. I would guess I'd classify myself as an Alien fan. I'm not a diehard of the franchise by any means. I guess I would align something that would probably be more like Star Wars, that I would say like I'm a diehard fan.
Okay.
With Alien, I watch the movies, I play some of the games, and then that's kind of it. I don't really get too much into like the lore of everything or try to put, pieces together. I mainly just kind of watch. And with this movie in particular, I was really excited for after watching the trailers, just because the look of everything really felt like a return to form for me. I've been on this rant before, but I was not a big fan of the last two Alien movies, which is Prometheus and Covenant. I guess Prometheus has some good ideas in it that I do like, and I guess I can appreciate. But overall, I've never really cared to rewatch that film, or ever went out of my way to recommend it to someone. And then Alien Covenant came out, and I just don't like that movie.
Yeah, for sure.
But there are good qualities to both. I'm not going to completely say they're garbage. Just for me, in particular, I thought they were pretty boring. And the Alien franchise has been dormant pretty much for the last 10 years or so. Nothing really new has been coming out besides a great Alien game called Alien Isolation. So now with Romulus coming out, it felt like time for them to bring it to the modern day and try to connect with a younger audience. And I felt like this movie really did that, and it really worked. So yeah, guess we'll get into it. Ed, do you want to mention anything about your experience with the Alien franchise?
Yeah, of course. So before seeing Alien Romulus, I didn't really see any of the Alien films beforehand, but I did do my homework and I did watch the first two Alien films just so I can have an idea of like what I was going to be in for, since I had never really seen them and they had kind of been on my watch list for ages. So it was kind of nice to like get around to them finally. And just the contrast between like the first two Alien films, I won't get too into it here. It was just kind of fascinating where like the first one was like more of like a slow burn kind of horror type, and then like James Cameron's Aliens was like kind of more like an action sci-fi thriller kind of thing, and I really really loved that a lot, and like just the approach it would take with the two Alien films and just how it kind of portrays them really well. And so going into Alien Romulus, I was curious to kind of see how Fede Alvarez was going to kind of take this, because I've never really seen any of his movies, and I know he kind of is a bit more familiar with like the franchise horror stuff. But yeah, I will say for seeing this for the first time, Alien Romulus, I really liked it a lot. I was really surprised with the direction he took it, and I'm glad that Ridley Scott kind of gave it to somebody else to kind of give it like a new direction and new like vision, because watching it, you can tell that like this franchise means a lot to him, and especially with the characters, you can tell like he put a lot of care and time into the movie, and you can tell that he really loves those like first two Alien films a lot.
Yeah. So I guess going into this movie, for those of you who don't know, first of all, I just recommend going and watching it. I had a great time with it. A lot of good scares, a lot of good building of tension. I just thought it was a really good horror film in general. It takes place between Alien and Aliens 1 and 2. So
Okay.
it's after the ending of the first one, the Nostromus. In the beginning, you see the alien that Ripley shot out of the ship in the first movie.
Yeah.
So they have a little bit of callbacks, and they kind of set up that this is picking up between 1 and 2. But it does not focus on Ripley at all. There's no mention really of much of her character. What happens is it takes place with these new characters. They are a group, I would say, kids, teenagers. They probably seem
Yeah.
like, they're in their late or early 20s or something. Just
Yeah.
a much younger demographic, I guess.
Mhm.
And what they are trying to do is they are trying to get off of this planet that they are on. It's like a mining planet. And they set this up really quickly that our main character, they're on this
Yeah.
planet, and she is basically clearing up like her time working for this company, this mining company. And she has finished all her time and she's ready to get off planet to go and, do other things. However, right before she's basically about to leave, they double her time on that planet to where it's like, oh, you basically have to reset and start all over. Right away, I'm just like, damn, that would suck.
That's messed up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's messed up. And I was already like kind of feeling for the character in that situation. I'm just like, that's insane.
Yeah.
But they also set up that she is siblings with an android. His name is Andy.
Yep.
And basically, this android was reprogrammed by her father. Yeah, sole directive now is to do what's best for Rain. And they show Andy that he is not like a android that we've seen in the Alien movies before.
Mhm.
Normally, when we see them, they're like super knowledgeable scientists. They know a bunch of information. They're programmed to be like basically elite life forms and stuff.
Yeah.
Andy is not that. They show him very early on. He has a lot of quirks, a lot of issues, and people don't like androids where he's from. So he gets constantly harassed. And you really start to feel bad for this android. And already, I don't know, people say this movie, some people have said it doesn't have many new takes or whatever. To me, this is a pretty big new take on an android.
Compared to the androids in like the first two Alien films, like he definitely feels more like a human and more like a character than like the other two.
Yeah. And there's a little bit of a switch with him later on, but already them setting up him being different from the other androids. And not only that, you have a human who has a pretty close relationship with this android. Already, I'm like, whoa, this is something I was not expecting. This is a completely new direction for them to take it in.
Mhm.
And already my mind starts to ask the questions of like, well, what would happen if one's in danger? I just start thinking of all these scenarios of like, well, how is this relationship going to get tested?
Yeah.
And already it's piquing my interest a lot more than when Ridley Scott brought back the androids in his newer Alien films, Prometheus and Covenant. It just felt like a continuation of the androids we've already seen pretty much. To me, this felt like a brand new direction. So they both have this group of friends who are like, you know what? We have a way to get off this planet. We don't want to be here any longer either. There is a ship that's stuck in orbit and we want to go get on it and take the cryo chambers that are on there so we can, survive a long trek across space. Because obviously when you're traveling in space, it takes many, many years, you can't, if by the time that trip's done, you're going to be old and probably dead. So they need these cryo chambers to put them to sleep and preserve them over a certain amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way they can get into the ship is with Andy. He is the key pretty much.
Yeah.
And you see her friends think of him in that way. So yeah, already, and this is set up in like the first 10 minutes. I already felt like I was on board with everything that was going on,
Yeah, it definitely has a quick pace for sure. I was kind of surprised by the time the movie was over. Like it was like it goes by like really fast, and it still like keeps you like on the edge of your seat like the entire time.
Yeah.
And then I guess one thing too that also kind of surprised me with this is that like it's almost kind of like a heist movie pretty much.
Oh yeah. That's actually true. I didn't think about that. So already they very very good setup. It doesn't waste time. It doesn't linger too long. I guess that's something some people might say when they're watching the older Alien films is the setup does take a little bit. I feel like for me it works, but I guess I would say if I was showing a younger demographic this those movies, they might take a little while for them to get into it, you
Yeah,
know.
it'd get a bit antsy.
Yeah, compared to this movie, I felt like things get moving right away. And I just want to say right off the bat, the set designs, the world and everything, the way it's lit looks amazing.
Yeah,
I
it
just
looks awesome.
I just couldn't. I was just like, wow, everything looks tangible. It looks real. It has like this realness to it. So yeah, compared to some other sci-fi movies, I feel like this one was really tamed on the CGI. At least when it came to like sets and everything, I felt like a lot of stuff was really like practical.
Yeah, for sure,
Um,
especially with like the AI design that we see later in the film, and then like those creature designs also like
yeah,
looked incredible. Like it looked kind of like almost like animatronic sort of, and I really loved that like kind of uncanny valley design that they went for the film.
yeah, really amazing. She is not completely on board with going onto this ship, but obviously with what they set up before that, she's gonna have to put in another. Oh, I forget how much time it was. It was a pretty much years of
At
her
least like a
life.
5 or 10 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you start to realize like, okay, I can't really. That's not an option. You know, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna spend another 10 years on this planet. So she joins her friends, and obviously, right away you see how much she worries about Andy. Like that's like her primary concern. They want to take him on the ship and because he can get access to the, certain parts of the ship and he
Mhm.
would have a better understanding of the things that were going on that ship. So already it kind of seems like her friends are just kind of like using her for this.
Yeah, like taking advantage pretty much.
Yeah, but she also has a reason as to why she wants to do this. So they go on the ship, amazing shots of space. The ship is just orbiting, and they find out it's not actually like a ship. It's like a pretty much like a vessel. It's
Mhm.
really just like you see it right away. You're just like, whoa, this place is like huge,
Yeah.
and it's just floating in orbit. I guess one little thing I was like, how did no one else notice that ship was in orbit? Because no one else is on it, no one else is wanting to go to it, and I'm just like, it was just sitting right there, you
It's
know?
like near the planet and everything
Yeah,
too.
near their planet. I was just like, oh, okay, I don't know.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but they get on it. It's things feel eerie pretty much from the start.
Mhm.
Two of her friends and Andy go on the ship, and you find out really quickly that one of the friends doesn't like androids.
Yeah, no, exactly, and I was surprised that the film actually took that approach, and I like that even though, like, he's kind of an he's one of the more unlikable characters in the film, but yet you still feel his pain that he's gone through with him losing his mom during that story that he talks about before they go into, like, the heist and everything.
Yeah. I really like that this movie continues that from the other Alien movies. Obviously, most of the Alien movies they have an android character with them, and you really
Mhm.
see how people are either trusting of this technology or they don't trust it.
Mhm.
And I think that's a very good commentary right now, especially with a lot of the things we have going on with AI.
Especially, yeah, I was gonna say it's, like, even more relevant, I think, now than, like,
Yeah, and
yeah.
it's crazy to think so many years ago they thought of these concepts and things.
Mhm.
So you see two sides of it. You see her Rain's relationship with Andy, and then you see the other people who are not really trusting. So they're on this ship, set design, amazing. The lighting in this ship is crazy.
The colors are fantastic, especially, like, those, later in the film, like, those red and oranges are
Yeah,
so they're like eye candy, they're just so beautiful to
looks
look at,
amazing.
and it's also, like, just terrifying too at the same
Yeah.
time.
And again, everything, I don't know how much of it is, but it feels practical. It feels in camera. I didn't really notice any CGI in terms of like the sets and everything.
Yeah.
Everything looked,
It looked like they actually filmed it on that
yeah,
set.
it was
Yeah.
insane. But there's a very, very distinct eeriness to the ship. No one's on it already. You're kind of like getting an uneasy feeling. Obviously, a xenomorph or something's gonna show up.
A face hugger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but nothing happens really right away. So they make it to like this room where they have to basically, well, they get the cryo chambers, but they find out that there's not enough battery in them to protect them over that long of a travel. I believe
Mhm.
it was only like 3 years or something. So
Yeah,
they
it was
have
3
to
years.
refill them. So they have to go to this other part of the ship and take basically these cryo batteries out and put them in the chambers. So they go to that part of the ship, and you see that they were experimenting with stuff.
Because of course they were.
Yeah, because of course something was going on that
Because,
ship. So yeah, do they run into that android before? Does that group run into the android? I'm trying to remember.
they run into him, like, I wanna say, like, kind of around, like, the midpoint of the film when they're going to, like, get the batteries, or,
Yeah.
like, when they're in that, like, red room or whatever it
They
is.
run into him before that, right?
I
Or
don't
no?
No, they didn't.
So
Mm-mm.
it's only Rain who runs into him, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. But you see some signs of like visual storytelling. I don't know. I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. Just like you look at an environment and you see, you know, it's barren, or you see bodies, and then you just start to pick up on like something just happened here and this looks
Yeah.
freaky.
Exactly.
It just gives you like a sense of dread. So they go into that room and they're basically getting these batteries out, and you see these face huggers in these bags that are like on the
Yeah.
wall. Now, if you haven't seen Alien or anything, these face huggers are basically giant spiders that latch onto your face and implant eggs in you.
Yeah, it's
So really freaky. Obviously, I'm
r
terrified of spiders, so face huggers really freak me out. Um,
yeah, definitely.
so they're in these bags, and then they start to take out these batteries, and you realize that the temperature is going to raise in there, and it's going to start waking them up because they're basically all frozen. So they do that. They get in there. One of the guys is just basically like doesn't really care. He's just trying
Yeah.
to get the batteries and stuff. And I think eventually it locks him in there, like some security measure clicks on, the door locks, and they can't get out. So then Rain and the other two girls on the ship realize that they have to go after to save them because they can't get out of that room.
Mhm.
Andy doesn't have access to the doors or whatever, it's not going to open. So they go there, and when they go there, they see these basically the setup of like shit just went down here.
Yeah.
You see this android that's like cut in half and this giant hole in the ground, and it's just like, what just happened here? And there was like a very big jump scare with that android, and I was just like, what the heck?
Yeah.
um, Normally jump scares don't really have an effect on me, but for some reason in this movie I was like kind of freaking out.
Yeah, the jump scares for me were hit or miss. I noticed some where, like, they had, like, the sound effect jump scare, and I just
Mm,
wasn't I didn't really like that personally, but for some of the ones that did work, I did really like the Android one, so that was definitely, like, the one that, like, stood out to me the
yeah.
most, but
Um, Androids are just freaky.
yeah.
If you play the Alien Isolation game, they're like an enemy in there, and they terrify me.
Yeah.
They're just like following you. Um, but yeah, they make it to the room, and they're trying to get them out. And they notice the environment of everything. They're trying to fix how to how do we get open this door. Um, Rain realizes she can take out the android's chip on the ground and put it in Andy, and that will probably give him clearance to
Mhm.
open the doors and everything. So they do that. They hand it through the door, and basically they put it in Andy, and he just totally like seizes up. And amazing shot of like his eyes rolling back,
Yeah.
and he's just like frozen there, and you're just like, oh, come on. You're just like, what the hell? And then you start to see the face huggers like waking up. And already you're just like, come on, like
It's
this is
terrifying.
insane. And pretty much the face huggers break out and they start attacking the other two guys in there.
Mhm.
I thought they were I thought they were fucked. I was
I
like,
know,
they're
I was
dead.
like
I was like, there's no way they're gonna make it out of there. But surprisingly, that's not what happens. I thought it was a really cool shot of like the face huggers like attacking them, and pretty much one is about to fall on this guy's face, and the camera like follows it down,
yeah,
but
it's like an awesome POV
you
shot.
see Andy's arm like catch it right before it lands on his face, and all of a sudden it pans back up, and you can already tell Andy's changed. Like, okay, something just changed when they put that chip in him because
Mhm.
he's acting 100% different. He grabs a face hugger, he basically just like throws it. The whole time before that, Andy's really timid, and you honestly get the feeling that he's kind of afraid of what, where he is and what's going on. But now he's changed. He has this new chip in him, so he's more like a military grade android now. But he also probably has some remnant memories of what the other android went through before this, you know?
Yeah.
So basically, they break out of that room. The other two guys live, and they start their whole trek across the spaceship to get out. And along the way, they run into a lot of other things that go on and a lot of different scares and things. I guess
Mhm.
some people will say it feels kind of like a haunted house. And I can see that, but
It did at some points, but it didn't like fully take me out of the film. I guess one part that I would say that's kind of like that is like where they're going through like the room of like face huggers and they got to be like super
super,
quiet.
yeah.
But I don't know. I really enjoyed that scene a lot. Like it definitely had me like, I know my heart was kind of racing during that scene and everything. And I was like, oh, are they going to make it out alive or not? You know?
Yeah. I never really
But
got the feeling that, like, I don't know, things were set up intentionally to, like, oh, this is meant to, it's going to be a scare, you know?
yeah, I didn't feel like predictable, like it was setting it up
Yeah, it
almost.
felt really organic, and it's just like, oh, this is another obstacle these characters have to go through, you
Mhm.
know? Sometimes I'll see movies, I guess one that I thought was kind of like that was the It movie, the
Mm,
remake.
yeah.
That felt like, okay, these are just set up for scares and things. This felt really natural to where everything they were kind of running into was just like, oh shit, this is just another obstacle. But
Yeah.
also very imaginative, taking the source material and the original aliens and just finding a way to do a new spin on them, you know?
Mhm.
Like you mentioned with the facehuggers, I didn't know that they were like uh basically reactive to sound and body temperature. So
Yeah.
it's kind of cool seeing that new level of explaining it, you know, because I didn't know that it was like, oh, that's kind of how they react to the world around them, you know?
Yeah.
And I guess some people will say, oh, that's kind of like Don't Breathe, how they had to, you know, be quiet in the house and everything. And yeah, it felt a little similar, but
Mhm.
it was still really cool to see, okay, we're not just taking the xenomorph and the face huggers and just throwing them in a new situation and then that's it. We're adding more of,
Creative solutions to, like,
yeah,
get to those points to make them kinda more satisfying and rewarding, I would say.
exactly. And I just really liked it. I won't go into too much about the rest of the plot
Mhm.
throughout the movie, but a lot of the scares were working for me and a lot of the building of tension was too. There's a scene where one of the friends, she turns out to be pregnant, basically had just watched her friend die with like the obviously the chest bursting.
I thought that was really cool how they showed it too with, like, the light and everything, and I
Yeah,
was just
the
like,
X-ray.
"Whoa," like, that kinda got chills down my spine.
And I'm telling you, when that chest burster broke out, it looked real.
Yeah.
It didn't look like
Y
CGI. I was just like,
This is
ooh.
really creepy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, that was something that I really appreciated with this movie. I'm not harping on the original Alien at all. I love that film. But
Mm.
when you rewatch it, there are some shots, some things in it where you can kind of tell what they did to get around at the
Oh,
limitations at
got
the
you.
time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If you watch the first Alien movie, there are very obvious scenes where you can very much tell that this is a guy in a suit, you know.
Mhm.
Obviously, they do their best to work around that and hide it. But I still feel like it works in that movie. But honestly, if I was showing someone young that movie and they caught on to that,
It could probably take them out of the
they could
film.
just be like, "That's a costume," you know.
Yeah.
And again, that's one of my big pluses with this movie is they're bringing it to a younger audience. They're showing them, okay, the xenomorphs, the face huggers, it's not just a time capsule. It's not just something that we thought was scary back then. It's something that can be scary now, you
Yeah.
know? And that's just something that I appreciate so much with this movie. Them using practical effects, them coming up with these imaginative situations with these, you know, horror icons, I'll say.
Yeah, for sure.
But updating them for a modern audience and showing that they are still relevant and they're still scary, you know?
Yeah. One thing I do think is really underappreciated in this film is the sound design for me,
Yeah.
especially with like the air hissing or like just the quiet ambiance that you hear like throughout, like when they're either walking or they're talking. It gives it like a more kind of scary feeling, like you're almost kind of there with them, you know?
Yeah.
It's very, especially with like the music too, like the more ambient music that you hear, it's very atmospheric and it gives off like kind of like a creepy, dark vibe. It's one of my favorites. I won't get too into it if we're not going to go into spoilers. Is one of the scenes where the xenomorph is like up on the roof and you kind of hear like, you know, it's like
Yeah.
it just keeps you on the edge of your seat the entire time. And I really love that like the film takes advantage of that sound design to make it also as like a scare of the film too.
Yeah. Just again, I you really notice it while you're watching this movie, how much care is put into everything. There are some tricks and stuff that I've you've seen in other movies. For instance, Blade Runner 2049. There's like certain scenes and stuff that play out where there's like pretty much you had your standard lighting and everything that's going on in the scene.
Mhm.
But then you also have like a light that's like changing in it. That was one of my favorite things in the movie was when they would show stuff like that. But I felt like they kind of played it out a lot in that movie to where towards the end I was like, they're doing this trick again. It looks cool and it makes your frame a lot more interesting when you have like this lighting change going on.
Mhm.
But I started to realize how much they were kind of overusing it.
Okay.
In this movie, it felt anytime they would do something like that, there was a reason as to why you would see the like they run up to this escape pod or the ship they came on and they get locked out of it. Andy and Rain by one of their friends is basically going to abandon them there. So then the lighting starts to go off that the
Yeah.
ship is about to take off. And it's like these cool lights in the hallway that start at the back and they come all the way to the front. And then it shows like Andy's center frame and it just looks really cool. But
Mhm.
there's like a reason as to why you're watching it. And again, the sound design kicks in, the music, and it just really is just like, wow, this is not really doing anything for the sake of, oh, we can just do that because it looks cool. Like
Yeah. There's
helps
purpose and intent to it.
it really helps you sell you on the world in which you're watching and it just feels that much more real, you know. So yeah, there's so many plus sides to this movie. One
Yeah.
of my favorite scenes, obviously I don't think it's too practical in how it would happen, but when they're in the hallway with all the xenomorphs and it's that zero gravity part and
That was
she
awesome.
just shoots them with the pulse rifle and it shows the effect of how like that thing locks on, which I thought was just so cool how they
Yeah.
showed that. And then all the blood, the acid, they're basically at the bottom of this ship hull. So if any of the acid hits the wall or the ground, it's gonna decompress the whole area.
Yeah.
So she realizes I have to turn on the zero gravity because the blood won't hit the ground.
Mhm.
Then this blood's just flying everywhere in the air, and she has to make it from one side to the other without hitting any of it because obviously it's gonna burn you alive.
Of course. The music in that scene too is like one of it might be my second favorite scene that with the music in it. It's just
Yeah,
fits that sequence so perfectly.
amazing. and they show earlier in the film like the acid and what it does to the body.
Yeah.
And it's gruesome.
Yeah.
It's
The
in
extreme close-up shots on that scene too were really well done.
Yeah, amazing. But obviously, if this was like, if we're thinking real, you would shoot it and the blood would probably just splurt out in all directions.
Oh, of course,
But
yeah.
it worked for me. It worked for me, and again, that's something that was new and imaginative. Using obviously acid blood, we've seen it a million times in these alien movies. Yet, how are we
Yeah,
gonna make it fresh? How are we gonna make it new?
exactly, yeah.
Um, yeah, it was just a great sequence overall. This film has so many of those sequences that again really sells you on the fact that yeah, xenomorphs are terrifying. They're
Very
freaky.
much so.
Like the scene where you first see one break out of that like egg in the wall or whatever that was. Ooh, that
Ugh.
really was just disgusting. And I was just like, oh my God,
Yeah.
this is nasty.
Yeah, for
Or
sure.
seeing the face huggers, they take the one off of their friend. She's basically already screwed. She was implanted.
Yeah.
You see how far that thing was going down her
Oh,
throat. And I
God, it
was
was
just
so
like,
nasty.
I didn't know that. The whole time I've seen a face hugger, like, I didn't know it goes that far into you. And just, that
Ugh.
freaked me out. Oh
Yeah,
my
that was
God.
like probably the most. I think I find the face huggers probably more disturbing than the xenomorphs.
Yeah.
Honestly, after that scene, I was like, "Oh God."
Yeah. And just really shows you
Yeah.
like the stress of the situation. Obviously, they try to get it off of her face and they're like trying to shock it. And it basically, all it's going to do is just squeeze tighter and choke her.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
I'm,
wow, this
I'm
is scary.
Yeah, and I'm glad they don't make stupid decisions, where they're like, "Oh, just keep pulling it." I like
Yeah.
that they find like, different ways to kind of deal with the situation, especially because it's like their first time dealing with that like face hugger type of thing.
Yeah. And it really sells you on the fact that like these guys were stuck on this planet with no way off.
Hmm.
They're going to do everything they can to kind of get out of there, like being on that mining planet for 20, 30 years, you waste your whole life there.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're in an extreme situation right now, but you're going to do everything you can because you really just don't want to go back to where you were,
Mhm.
but you're also trying to escape and obviously get past this alien and everything that's on the ship. But yeah, there's so many good sequences. I really can't praise it enough.
Yeah.
One of the things that I like is the relationship between Rain and Andy starts to get tested. She starts to catch on to the fact that okay, he's acting different. Like what's going on? You almost let somebody die. You almost, you're really not caring as much about other people. And
Yeah.
he basically states he has a new directive now. When that chip was put in his head.
It's like a part of him just like died off almost pretty
and
much.
It's not glossed over in any means, but it's done very fast. His prime focus is no longer Rain and what's best for her. He has to do what's best for the mission.
Yeah.
Little callback to Alien 1,
Yep.
preserve the life form and then bring it back. That was the objective of everything. And the moment that happens, you're just like, oh shit. You're just like, damn. Like, yeah, it's cool seeing Andy, become a better
A
version,
badass,
I guess. But then you're just sad. You're like, I like the android how he was before. I miss that part of him.
Yeah.
There
He's
was
just like soulless almost,
yeah,
There's no personality to him anymore.
yeah. There was a certain charm to it there. But yeah, it just kind of becomes a little sad, and you see Rain start to pick up on that. But in that sequence, she basically has the option to leave him there. She does, but then she realizes like I can't. Like this guy is pretty much her brother,
She's like family to him pretty much.
And again, like people want to harp on this film saying, there's no new questions or anything proposed. I'm sorry. The whole dynamic between Andy and Rain is something I haven't seen in the Alien films,
Mhm.
showing that someone cares for this android like a sibling and is going to risk their own life to protect them is to me just amazing. I'm like, wow, that's a risk, yet it actually feels real and it feels organic.
Yeah, and it's very effective. It's definitely like it's definitely like the emotional core of the film for
Yeah.
sure. I don't think the film would work as well if it didn't have that relationship between Rain and Andy.
Yeah. To me, then it would feel more like a standard horror flick.
Or just feel like a retread of like the first Alien film again, you know?
Yeah. So yeah, that's just something that I really appreciated. And to me, I'm sorry that that's a whole new direction that none of the other movies really get into, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the other movies seem to be just like, can we trust the android? Is the android something we can trust? And you know, there are instances like, yeah, you can, and then there's instances, yeah, you can't, you know.
Hmm.
But now it's different. Now it's, do I care? Am I going to protect this android the way I would my own family? You know,
Hmm.
and that's pretty much all she has left to her childhood. I just want to say, performances in this movie are great, but Andy just steals the show.
I was gonna, yeah.
Uh,
Andy easily for me steals the show. He does such a fantastic job.
It seems to be the case with these androids in the movies, especially the last two, that they are stealing every scene they're in.
I know.
But I feel like the actor for this takes it even farther. Obviously, I've said that my favorite parts about the last two Alien movies, Prometheus and Covenant, is the android played by Michael Fassbender.
Hmm.
But I feel like this guy does it even better.
Kind of just elevates it to like another level.
Yeah, you feel sympathetic for him, which is something that I didn't think I would.
Yeah.
Yet halfway through the movie, I was like, damn, I really miss how Andy was before, you know?
I like that it takes that approach where it's like this AI is like blurring the line between like human and android, you know? It was
Yeah.
such a cool kind of juxtaposition and like commentary almost.
Yeah. And obviously when he returns and she saves him and takes that chip out. Oh man, it's amazing. Seeing Andy back is just like, oh, thank God. Like
Yeah, get this soulless android out of here.
Yeah, get the soulless android out of here. We don't need him. We have Andy. Again, probably one of my favorite alien characters, period.
Yeah.
I just want to give a lot of props to the actor. He did really well portraying these two sides, you know, one being more like a person and then one being more like the typical android you see in the other alien films.
Yeah.
There's a little fan service callbacks, which I didn't mind.
I thought they were tastefully done. They were a bit more subtle than I thought they were going to be. I thought they were going to be a bit more like on the nose, but I
Yeah.
kind of dug what they were doing, especially in the second half. I won't give anything away, but
Yeah.
I was like, man, that was actually pretty cool. That's kind of
Yeah.
cute.
Really good. It didn't feel, yeah, like Wallied said, it didn't feel forced. It didn't feel like, oh, we got to do this just to do it.
Woo!
Yeah.
Woo!
When I first saw it, there were some people cheering at the moment in the elevator. Obviously, Andy has a little one-liner. I don't know why. I thought it was really funny.
Yeah, it's just funny the delivery. The line delivery was just
Yeah,
was
it's just
perfect.
perfect.
Yeah.
But obviously, it was still really cool.
Mhm.
Now, there is something that happens towards the tail end of this movie that I want to talk about
Alright.
because for me, it was the scariest part of the movie.
Oh my god.
You see a character earlier. Obviously, we know she's pregnant. And basically, something happens with the baby. And yeah, I don't know what it is. Resident Evil 8 and this movie, whenever something happens with a baby, it really freaks me out. Yeah, the last 10 minutes of this movie was easily the scariest part for me.
Yeah, I agree. I was literally like I jumped in my seat. I was like, what the especially like those POV shots too. I
Yeah.
just was like, oh my god, is she ugh.
Yeah. Very, very quickly, this baby is born, but you see it obviously grows faster than normal. Which I
Yeah.
know doesn't totally obey the laws of physics, but whatever.
I don't know what
It's
she
it's a
was feeding
movie.
that thing, but cool. Yeah.
She was obviously implanted with some
Yeah.
super crazy pathogen bioweapon or whatever.
Yeah, that they do foreshadow actually earlier in the film with the rat and
Yeah.
everything. So
And little callback to Prometheus, by the way, with that.
okay, yeah, I haven't seen Prometheus.
But yeah, there's a shot specifically that really freaked me out. You see Rain look back at this dark hallway, and you see that thing and the face, the face it's making.
It's
To quote Stewie from Family Guy, "Why does it look sad?" That was my reaction seeing that. And when you see this creature, it's just staring in this dark hallway. They use these shadows on its face, and it just, oh my God.
it's like looking into your soul
It
almost.
terrified me. I was just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really loved that last 10 minutes. It was so weird. Like, I thought the movie was ending, and I was just
I
like,
thought
oh,
so too. And then like once we got like the whole baby thing, I was like, oh God, now what?
yeah.
You know?
And it goes on for a little bit, and
It surprisingly doesn't ruin the pace of the film though at all. I'm still like on the edge of my seat though. I'm still like, are they gonna make it out of this or not? Are they gonna be able to like how are they gonna get through this, you know?
because when they set up the baby and everything, obviously I was like, okay, we'll probably see that in the second one or whatever. But there's a very nice conclusion to it in this first movie. And yeah, obviously you have your xenomorphs, your facehuggers, but them showing something new, well, to me, just I applauded them. That was really scary, really terrifying, and something new for people. You know, like you have your diehards of the franchise who go to this movie. Some people will say like, "Oh, it felt like a greatest hits type of movie," but I felt like it still took some risks and
I still felt like it was unique. I still felt like Fede Alvarez like put his own spin on the Alien films, you know.
yeah.
Sure it does borrow a bit from Alien and Aliens, but it doesn't feel like a copy and paste of like those first two, you know.
Yeah, and it's not just like a pointless, oh, we got to do that because that was in the first one or the
Yeah.
second one, you know?
Retreading water basically, yeah.
The only thing that I really felt like was that, but even then I still liked it, was
Mm.
obviously the ending. She goes to sleep and it's just like, oh, okay, this is
Okay.
kind of like Ripley in the
Reminiscent.
first one.
Yeah.
But still worked. Still
Yeah.
worked for me.
Absolutely.
So yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this movie. There is just so much to like. There's everything in it is effective.
Yeah.
Again, my biggest plus of the movie, taking something that's older, dormant, you know, for a little bit and just revitalizing it, giving the new generation their alien,
Yeah,
you know.
and then just finding new ways to make those obstacles and those like trials like more satisfying and rewarding and even more scary and disturbing than those
Yeah.
first two, you know. I guess for me, one thing I don't know if it's really a criticism, but I guess I do wish like they did flesh out like a couple of the characters more, like
Yeah.
especially the pregnant lady and especially like the British guy when he was talking about like losing his mom to the androids. I do kind of wish we got some like more I just wish it was fleshed out a bit more emotional.
Yeah.
But
That does make sense. Really, like you said, the emotional core of the movie is Andy and Rain.
yeah.
They could have done a little more with those side characters, but I felt like towards the end I was just like, well, you know, it works.
Yeah, it's still kind of like
serviceable.
a survival of the fittest story. So that's kind of why I'm like, I don't know if it's really a criticism, but I guess if
Yeah.
I had to say like there was maybe one thing I do think it could have been improved on, it's just maybe that.
Yeah. But overall, I recommend it. Please go watch this movie.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, then I'm sorry.
Maybe watch the first two Alien films and then come back to this one and maybe
Yeah.
see, but
I did rewatch the first two before I saw this movie, and it really helped me get back into the
Yeah,
franchise.
definitely.
Just because, again, I wasn't the biggest fan of the last two, and even before that, to me, the Alien franchise just never was all hits. You know, there was definitely quite a bit of misses in there. But seeing the trailer for this movie, I was just hoping, I'm like, please, I want just at least a good Alien film, you know?
Yeah.
And this delivered for me and
Mhm.
even surpassed my expectations. Um, I guess score, honestly, I'm just feeling a solid 8 out of 10. I
Yeah,
just really enjoyed it.
nice.
I can't recommend it enough. I would say maybe even more higher 8, closer to 9, but I'll just give it a solid 8 out of 10. There wasn't any downside for me for this movie.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a modern masterpiece or anything, but
it does everything really well, and it gets its message across. Like,
yeah.
you know.
And I feel like as far as readapting for a modern audience, I feel like this movie stands on its own really well.
Hmm.
If I were to see this, just not knowing anything about Alien, it would definitely make me want to go and watch the older ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, 8 out of 10.
Nice. One more thing I wanted to mention. That intro sequence is like absolutely
Oh
fantastic with
yeah,
this like the choral, like orchestral music and everything. That was
yeah,
one of the coolest things. I liked that the movie just sucked you in immediately. But I would say score wise for me, I'll say yeah, I think I'm with you. Like a low 8 out of 10, I
yeah,
would say. High 7 to a low 8. But yeah, I really loved it a lot. I think if I rewatched it, I'd probably even enjoy it even more.
yeah.
But yeah, I'll say a low 8 out of 10 for now.
Yeah, definitely. I guess there was one thing I wanted to touch on, but I guess I'll just leave it out. Probably the only downside for me with this movie was there's a very blatant use of a CGI character in this movie that to me didn't work as well as I feel like they wanted it to. And it did take me out of the movie a little bit. Obviously, there could be some controversy around this. There is an actor in this movie who has passed away, yet he is brought back through CGI and probably like AI voice. But it happened to be an Android character, so I feel like
Yeah, I was,
in doing that, it kind of worked. But I rather them do something more practical. I don't know why
yeah,
they didn't do this, but the face that you see is like 100% put together and fine. And I get. Obviously, you're meant to like put two and two together that this is the Android model from the older movie. But I feel like they could have just done something practical and just had his face like scarred, like maybe skin ripped off or
oh,
something.
yeah.
That
Maybe,
would to me would have just been a smarter way to go about it and maybe just been like, okay, this is the same older model that you've seen. But when you see this character kind of with the CGI and everything, there's a little bit of uncanny valley.
yeah,
Um, and to me, it didn't really work as well as it should have,
okay.
especially in the rest of the movie. Everything looks practical, everything looks amazing. So that was the only part that kind of fell for me.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I didn't really notice it all
Oh,
that
okay.
much. So I wasn't aware of actually that at all. But I don't know. It didn't really take me too out of the film. And even
Nice.
I guess if it did, I still think it works with like that again, like we've kind of been mentioning, just that uncanny valley nature of the film,
Yeah.
because it's like he's an AI, he's an android. So
Yeah.
I think it kind of fits with the AI thing that they're using AI, but I don't know.
That's true.
I don't know. To me, I didn't really see it as a crutch of the film or as like
Mhm.
trying to show off, but
It
yeah.
was at no point was the film depending on that thing to work.
Hmm.
I feel like it was more like an added like homage and bonus for the actor. So it didn't really feel like there was malicious intent behind doing this.
Yeah, it didn't seem like they were using the AI as a crutch, but rather
Yeah,
just kind of using it as like a way to tell the story, which I
exactly.
don't know, it kind of fits perfect because like he's an AI character. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I was not aware of that it was like CG and they used AI for that.
And there was a lot of
Yeah.
eeriness. Like you see his face later on like a computer screen when he's talking to these other characters. And it looked like those old 90s isometric games or early 2000s where it's just like a face and it looks very freaky.
Yeah.
To me, that worked. I was just like, oh, that looks. There's a point where this girl's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "Oh, this is what you need to do. This is." And I was just like, that would terrify the hell out of me.
Yeah, no, same here.
I'd be like, "Who the fuck?" Um,
But yeah.
but yeah,
Okay.
that was just something I guess some people were a little upset about.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, overall, recommend it. Please go watch Alien Romulus.
Yeah, check it out, guys. It's pretty great.
It's
Surprised me
awesome.
for sure.
Please, Fede, if you want to stay on for the next one, I encourage you to do so. And just do something even further with it, please, because it's really nice to feel excited about the Alien franchise. I
Hmm.
haven't felt that in a long time.
Yeah, I'll
Uh,
definitely have to check out Fede Alvarez's other films just
yeah,
because I've honestly, just after seeing this, I'm kind of like, oh, I wonder what kind of other approaches he's taking with like some of the other franchises and the way he kind of uses horror and
I
everything. So,
really enjoyed Don't Breathe. That
okay.
to me was awesome. So yeah, he's a very, very great horror director.
Okay,
Um,
awesome.
but yeah, all right. I guess we'll close it out with that. Alien Romulus. It's another
Woohoo!
one of our reviews.
Comes full circle. It always
Comes
goes back to Ridley Scott.
and our next review is Gladiator 2.
All right. Let's get
Have
him.
a good
All
one.
right. Good day, mates.